Hey friends, Kelly here. Welcome back to my channel. This week I am working on another spread in my Project Life book, my 2017 book that I'm trying to get caught up on. And I had gone ahead and already put together all of the cards that I wanted to use. I used a digital collection, and I'm going to show you quickly how I altered some of those through Photoshop. So let's get started with that. So this again is the digital collection I'm using. This is no longer available, but it was from Studio Calico called Expedition. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you how I made a couple of adjustments here in Photoshop. And to get started, I'm just going to go ahead and open up one of the journal cards. So we'll go ahead and work with this one here to show you how I created my journal block. So what I want to do is also create a 4x6 because I want to expand this out to a 4x6 card so that I can have a place to do all of my journaling. So first thing I'm going to do is grab my rectangle marquee and actually, oh, you know what? I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to cover up the date on this card. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab another section from the journal card of the pink. And I'm going to go ahead and use my arrow tool to move. And again, not what I want to do. I want to copy and paste a new section on because I don't want to take any out of the space I'm already working in there. I want to cover up. So copy and paste, and I'm just using shortcuts, and I am working on a Mac. So I'll go ahead and get that done here. And then next thing I'm going to do is I like to merge my layers so that I'm working in one piece. And then I'm going to just go ahead and take and copy paste that now into the 4x6. Here I'm just going to go ahead and drag the sides of this box. Because I'm not too worried about changing the proportions and skewing it because it's just simple lines, this works for this process. If I wanted to extend it by duplicating, that would be a different process. One I have yet to master, so I won't be showing you that today, but that was the easy way for me to do it. Okay, let me start with another one here. So this time I want to do some color changing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab out a swatch of a color I've already created, and I'm going to just go ahead and use the paint bucket to fill in the background color. Now I want to change the words, so again, I'm just going to pick a different color and use the paint bucket. This is one of those cards that lends itself very easily to just this very simple click with the paint bucket because we're working with big, bold graphics. Now, one thing you want to do is make sure that when you save these, you're saving them to something different than the card. You don't want to wreck the original. Let's go ahead and work on another card. How about this one right here? So this yellow card, I'm going to, let's do some changing of the color again. So again, with the paint bucket, I can go ahead and just change the colors. This works really well because these are solid backgrounds and solid colors. And I don't want to forget to do the little pieces inside. So I'm just zooming in so I can take a look at everything here. And let's say I wanted to maybe cover up the words and the star. So let me show you guys how I would do that. Let's go ahead and grab and one thing I could do is use the magic wand, but that's going to take the color out. I don't want to do that, otherwise it's going to have a blank space. So I'm going to deselect all of that and undo what I just did. And instead I want to go ahead and, again, just fill it with a piece of the background of the card. So in this case, it's really easy. It was just a white box. I could also have drawn a box and filled it in, but this is a much easier way to do it for me. So again, I'm just going to grab and copy paste. Uh-oh. Let me try that again here. What? I see my problem. This isn't working here. If you find yourself, like me, struggling because something isn't working, double check to make sure you're on the appropriate layer. That is what is happening here. I'm not on the correct layer. So let me click on the right layer. And again, I'm going to use my rectangle marquee, copy and paste the selection, and just go ahead and move it over. So now let's say I wanted to add something to this card. So let me go back into that card I was just working with, the one that says, let's get lost. It's this one here. And I am going to go ahead and I'm going to use the magic wand to get rid of the background. and making sure I click inside of any letters that has a piece of that background. And then from here, I'm just going to go ahead and use my marquee tool again. And I'm going to grab it, and with my move selection, I'm going to just drag it into the other card. So now I have the words here, but let's say I want to change the color. So again, I'm just using the paint bucket, and I'm just going to click through each one of these. And because it's all one solid color, this again, like I said, makes it very simple to just click anywhere inside those letters. Now, let's say I wanted to make it a little smaller. Holding Shift, I'm going to drag from the corners to keep the proportions right, and I'm just going to move this around. So there's a couple of very simple, easy ways that you can alter some of your digital cards to make them better fit the project you want. Now all I have to do is go ahead and merge all of my layers, and then I'm going to go ahead and export it as a PNG, and then I can go ahead and print my card. So I hope that that was helpful to you, and if you have any questions about that process, I know I went through it relatively quickly. Feel free to drop a comment below, and I'd love to try to answer them or point you in a direction, because I am still just trying to figure out Photoshop. I know how to do what I know how to do. Okay, let's jump back into my process here. So again, I have gone ahead and pulled out all of the digital cards that I wanted to use. I made some alterations, and then I also went ahead and did all of my journaling ahead of time. So now I'm just going to work through each of these cards almost individually, like they're their own layout. When I was putting this layout together, I already had a kit that I had been using for a different week in the book. And actually what I'll do is I'll link above here the spread that I'd already used this kit for. And then I'll also link the building your own kits from your stash, because that's kind of how this all fit together. And I'll make sure they're linked below as well. Okay, so I've got this little stash kit I'm working with, and I really wanted to use a lot of stamping this week, and so I'm going to be working with a lot of stamping. I also went ahead and created this whole page of labels when I was working with the digital cards. I obviously decided to go with a theme of a color palette, and so I went ahead and I created the labels in that color palette as well. So here I'm just going to go ahead and start playing around with some of the little bits I have on my desk. So I'm going to play around with some washi tape, like I said, stamping, and just incorporating all of the colors. I spent a lot of time on this week's spread moving things around. And so in the beginning of this video, you may have seen me flipping cards around and moving cards. I can't tell you how long I took to figure out the placement of these cards. And then even in the end, from what you guys see me create to what the final photos are, I even made one more change. So I was very indecisive, and I spent way more time than I wanted to fiddling around with trying to place everything where I wanted it to sit. So I'm trying to carry through a few of the same elements. I am stamping. I am obviously got a color palette. And then I've created these little banners by using just a piece of the cardstock that I had cut off from the 3x4 there I have at the bottom, the striped one. And I use that to create some of these little banners, and I'll repeat that throughout. Now, some of these stamp sets that I'm using are no longer available. If they are, I will make sure to link them below. And I also have to apologize that most of this video is filmed at the bottom of the screen, and even sometimes a few things are outside of the frame. I don't know what happened when I was setting up my camera, but apparently I decided to work either very close to the edge of my desk, or I had my camera positioned a little off. So my apologies, but you will get to see everything as it works its way into the spread. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and pull out that sand eraser. A lot of these stamps that I used this week are new to me. I've had them for a while, but I haven't had an opportunity to use them, or I have so many stamps I don't ever use them because it's overwhelming to me on which ones to pull out. So I really liked that this whole layout was a very specific theme. So it was all about obviously camping and outdoors. So it was easier for me to pull those stamp sets that made sense and then to actually use them. That's another thing that's really great when you're creating your own stash kits, is also to keep in mind the stamps that work well with that kit. Even sometimes if you want to go ahead and go through your kits, or rather your stamp sets, and stamp off all the stamps that you think would work well in that kit, and then even write down the stamp set that they come from. For this card, I really wanted to incorporate more of the circles, but I was struggling. I just felt like the size wasn't quite right. This large camera it felt too big, and then I thought these little words were kind of fun, these little epoxy words, but that didn't work either. So I just set that card aside and move on to my next 4x6 area on this page. Again, I'm pulling out some of these stamp sets. I believe this is an Allie Edwards set, and it didn't quite work, so I went into my Felicity Jane sets, and unfortunately this set is no longer available at this time. But it's a really fun one. It talks about friends and kind of the you and me, and I believe daughter is on there, but it really worked for this layout. This layout is all about telling the story of my daughter, my oldest daughter, and I going camping. This is something we've done every year together since she was about 3.5, just the two of us. And so this is kind of our annual summer thing that we do, and I wanted to document it. And this one ends up being even a little bit more special because about a week after this trip, we learned we were expecting our second child. So it was a little extra special after the fact because it was our last trip together. Well, actually that's not true. We went camping together the next year because baby sister was just too little. But being that it was the last time that it was just her and I with no other siblings in the picture made it extra special. Now you can see I'm trying to peel off that piece there. I stuck it down before I realized that I wanted to pull some of the bulk out of it. It's a chipboard piece and it was really stuck, so it wasn't going anywhere. The nice thing about pocket pages is that it can have a little bulk and it doesn't really matter that much, so I had to stick with it. Here I am letting this little card that says girls just want to have sun speak for itself. I added a smidge of washi and that is all done. So moving on to this picture of my daughter, she was leading our nature hike, and so she's giving me some direction. And again, like I said, I'm going to incorporate in another one of those little paper banners. The colors for this spread really came from a combination of my favorite colors and then also the colors that are in the photos. For example, this green color, I'm not even sure what that color is called. Teal, maybe? Is it teal? I don't know. I always get teal and turquoise mixed up, so I think it's teal. But that color in her shorts is where that kind of comes from. And then the blue color is driven out of the big air mattress that the girls are swimming on. And the pinks are kind of drawn from my daughter's swimsuit, and just because I love pink and teal, I think it's my favorite color combo. So it wasn't very hard. This card I struggled with for a bit, and I had set it aside, and then I came back and realized I wanted to duplicate the washi that I had done on the card on the right side there that says go and explore above on the 4x6. So again, I'm incorporating this washi tape a couple of different times. So as this layout went along, it started to develop its own recipe, so to speak. So excited to use some of the stamps that I used on this project because they've been just begging for some use. I love camping, and it's when I get to putting all of my camping trips into our album, I feel like I have so many things that are about camping that I almost don't know where to start, and sometimes I go minimal. So it was really fun to use a lot of the different stamp sets. So again, you saw the chipboard piece I put up on that card with the little tent in the background. That time I got smart and I pulled some of the bulk out, but then I had to use some glue to get that to stick. So I set that aside to dry, and now I'm going to work with some of these epoxy hearts and dots. I contemplated those pink chipboard hearts, but some of them have a fleck of copper in it, and it didn't really go with the rest of this page. So I ditched those and I pulled out these epoxy hearts. I just love these hearts. I'm going to be so sad when I've used them all up. So I just play around with placing them around on the different cards. And some I put down and some I take off because I don't quite like the way it looks. And I end up going also with some of these little epoxy dots, or rather enamel dots. And boy, man, those little ones are hard to work with sometimes. I ended up, especially with my fat little fingers, oh man, I ended up reaching for my tweezers, which those things are awkward to use. So I don't know which was more difficult, my fingers or my tweezers, but in the end, I got all of the enamel and epoxy bits and bobs down onto the cards, and I really loved how that all came together. I have been wanting to use up more of these little enamel dots, and it was really nice to get some of those down onto a project. Now this little 3x4 card here that says menu, I tried a couple of different variations on what I wanted to put on, and I ended up ripping the paper a little bit, so I covered it up with some washi tape, and I really end up liking how this turned out. It brings a little more of that blue over, and I just love that little peak of washi tape. I'm gonna have to remember to do that more often. So the chipboard camera piece has dried sufficiently, so now I'm going to do a bit more stamping. So I've pulled out that Ellie Edwards stamp set again, and I'm just going to go ahead and line a few stamps up. And then I also had this little set from Citrus Twist Kits, and then I also pull out a set from Studio Calico. This was one of those sets that came as a stamp subscription. I'm not entirely sure if it's still available either. If it is, I will make sure to link below. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything lined up, and then I'm going to pull out my Fiskars stamp press. And that is such an awesome tool, and I don't use it very often, but for something like this, it worked out really, really well. So I'm just going to prep all these stamps again with that sand eraser. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp it down onto a piece of paper first. And I'm not really looking to make sure that the stamping is clear and crisp. I'm making sure that the stamps are all on the same level. Like if you've ever tried to stamp from different sets on one block, sometimes the depth of the stamps are different, and so it's not going to work out very well. I got lucky, this all worked out well. And then I ended up having this blank space, so I just went into the stamp set and found another word that fit into that space. I take a few minutes looking every photo over. There are some photos I decided not to do anything onto in that middle row. I've left all the 3x4 photos completely plain, and that's it. This spread is completely done. Having the digital cards ready to go to work with was so much nicer. Even though it took me a long time to place them and figure out where I wanted to put them, it left me more creative freedom, space in my brain to do some of the stamping. And also getting the journaling out through onto the digital cards before I printed them out helped me to tell the story better. I don't love to journal, and so handwriting everything, I get really sloppy and lazy. So it was nice to have the story there. So I hope that you found something of value in this video. Like I said, if you have any questions, pop them below and I'd be happy to try to answer them or point you in the right direction. So thanks friends for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. I would love that. And then finally, hit that little bell so you're getting notifications when new videos are posted. Thanks friends, and I'll see you next time.